Hello, welcome, fellow lightworkers and metaphysicians. Today, on The Builders of the Light Web, I am introducing a series on the major arcana of the tarot called The Way of the Cosmic Magician, Navigating the 7 Stages of Spiritual Unfoldment. I am your host, Damien Sabuyan. So, let's get to it. First, let me introduce the framework that I'll be referencing throughout the series. This is called the Tableau of the Tarot. It includes all 22 of the major arcana keys. And yes, I said keys and not cards. And that's purposeful because for this series, we're looking at the major arcana from an esoteric context rather than the typical divination context. When we're using them for divination purposes, what is called a tarot card reading, we naturally say tarot cards. But when examining the deeper, more esoteric meanings, and especially when investigating the major arcana, which make up the 22 of the 78 cards normally found in a complete pack, I like to use the word tarot keys. You see, the word keys implies that there is something that needs unlocking. What needs unlocking in this case is the door to self-awareness or infinite conscious or the I am presence or the higher self or God, whatever word you're familiar with and you like to use. Like William Blake said, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. That's a great description for the objective of the 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment, as represented by these 22 keys. They unlock the doors of perception, so we not only can perceive the infinite, but experience it in all its glory. So, the Tableau of the Tarot was set up and named this way by a legendary yet still little-known writer, occultist, metaphysical mastermind, and mystery school founder, Paul Foster Case. If you really want to go down a never-ending rabbit hole about the tarot, numerology, the Kabbalah, alchemy, then look up and read the works of Paul Foster Case. He's amazing. So, is the school he founded called the Builders of the Adytum, or BOTA, B-O-T-A. I'm a member of that school, and you can join too for a nominal fee. So, let's take a look at our tableau. As you can see, the Tableau of the Tarot is composed of 7 columns, of 3 rows. Each of these 7 columns represent a stage in the 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment, from bondage all the way to cosmic consciousness. Bondage, cosmic consciousness is the goal. The 3 rows also have specific meanings. The first row, which composes the first 7 keys of the major arcana, represents the modes of consciousness involved in the 7 stages. So all the 7 cards here, each represent a mode of consciousness. The second row here represents laws or principles that the corresponding mode of consciousness must abide by in order to result in what is represented by the third row. For example, the magician represents a mode of consciousness we'll call for this exercise single-pointed concentration. Single-pointed concentration. So if we apply concentration through the principle represented by the strength key, we get the result of the devil key. So single point of concentration through the strength key, we'll get the devil key. The strength key represents a specific law, which we'll get to in our next video. Same with the result of the devil key. That's we'll get to the first stage in our next video. This is just an introduction to the tableau itself. So as you can see, the 7 stages involve 7 columns, 3 rows, and involves 21 of the 22 major arcana tarot keys. But wait, what about the other key, here, standing all by itself, otherwise known as the 0 key or the Fool? The Fool is shown here separated from the rest of the tableau, and it represents the eternal soul or prana or limitless light, which is what I'll probably go with, the limitless light. That's what Paul Foster Case called the 0 key, but it's Similarly to any number of very esoteric words like prana, the eternal soul, the know thing, and all of the rest. It really can't be defined, but it's the essence of what is behind all life. So the tableau over here is like a matrix for soul evolution. So this would be the soul. This is like the matrix of the world that we live in and how we navigate through it in order to evolve. And the Fool represents the soul and the soul's infinite potential. Before the Fool enters the matrix, here, he is the soul as infinite potential. Once the Fool passes through the 7 stages, the Fool is the soul actualized or embodied. So in that sense, the Fool, in the context of the 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment, is you, is me, is everyone. But before we are born, we're the eternal soul. We're born and we're still the eternal soul. The difference is we've forgotten, and our culture emphasizes separation and bondage to the material world as symbolized by the devil key. So life becomes a game of sorts, whose goal is to remember who we are, and once we remember, our goal is to embody our soul within the world of form, to bring heaven down to earth. That's the final key here. The tableau is the matrix we go through, and we go through this matrix many times until we fulfill our soul's goal, which is actualization, becoming one with God. The Fool also represents the ideal mindset of the practitioner to cultivate. So there's a lot of symbology in this, in the Fool card, and the general degree of consciousness that we want to go in is the beginner. We want to go into the process of the 7 stages like the Fool, or like a child with an open mind, being present for the moment, spontaneous, and unimpeded by our preconceptions. There is an old Zen saying attributed to Shunryu Suzuki that goes, in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's there are few. So when we begin practicing the 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment, or any spiritual practice for that matter, it is beneficial to cultivate the mind of the Fool as is described in Suzuki's quote. In other words, we want to cultivate the beginner's mind. So we'll close today's episode with a mini deep dive into the Fool. So what is the Fool looking at? According to Jason Lauterhand, the Fool is, quote, looking in the direction of the unknown. Looking up and at the unknown. The unknown is where all the excitement is. We, as spiritual seekers, are so constructed that we insist on having adventures. Astrologically, key 0 is connected to the planet Uranus, which symbolizes the spirit of adventure. The unknown is also another word for the higher levels of consciousness. The reason why the Fool is designated with the non-number 0 is because 0 looks like an egg, and an egg is something which contains the potencies of growth and development. As a living form is hatched from an egg, so is everything in the universe brought forth from the cosmic egg of the life power. The life power, which the Fool represents, has within it all possibilities. Air, as in prana, is a significant aspect of the Fool. The noun fool is derived from the Latin word follies, meaning a bag of wind. Phallus, not follies, also means bellows, which is an instrument for the utilization of air. In many cultures, air, wind, breath is used to designate life or conscious energy. So, there's a quote that summarizes the meaning of this key. The wisdom of God is foolishness with men. The wisdom of God is foolishness with men. You see, the life power is forever young, forever in the morning of its power, forever on the verge of the abyss of manifestation. It always faces unknown possibilities of self-expression, transcending any height which it might previously have reached. He faces west, toward a peak at which he gazes, above and beyond his present station. It is that which was is, and shall be, indicated by the Hebrew letters IHVH at the collar of his undergarment, which you probably can't see from there, but trust me, it's IHVH. The inner robe is dazzling white. It's the white light of perfect wisdom. It is concealed, so he's wearing some white, you can see in the sleeves and underneath there, and that is the light of perfect wisdom, but it's concealed by the black coat of ignorance, lined with the red of passion and material force. The outer garment is embroidered with solar orbs. You can probably see those solar orbs containing 8 red spokes, symbolizing the initial whirling motion that brings the universe into manifestation. The garment is held on by a girdle. He's got a little girdle belt there that symbolizes time. It goes around, and it is only when we are freed from the limitation of time that we are able to overcome ignorance and passion. Other symbols of note include the black staff that he's holding, which represents the will of the seeker holding the bag of his past. That's his past lives and experiences. So we go into our birth, into this lifetime, with our past lives all symbolized here with in our bag here. This white sun is the spiritual light. That's the white sun. Spiritual light perceived on initiation, entering the crown chakra. So it's, you see his head is tilted, so he's getting the sunlight into his crown chakra. The eye on the bindle is represents a portal for the inner light illuminating the initiate's life. The eagle, there's a eagle underneath the eye on the bindle, and the eagle is higher vision. The white rose, which he carries in his left hand, is the purity of purpose. And the dog is both the necessary instincts as well as our rational mind, which follows the soul rather than leads the soul. And this is important. If you notice, a lot of the symbols are behind the fool. The sun is behind the fool, and giving him support and life from his crown chakra. His past is behind him, and it's not burdensome, right? He's not being lugged down by this past. He's just like gracefully carrying it. The rose, he's being led by pure purpose, and the dog is also white. It's instincts to let him know when danger is around, but it's also not leading him because it's his reason. Reason is in its rightful place behind him. The Hebrew letter assigned to 0 is Aleph. That is Aleph. In Jewish mysticism, it represents the oneness of God. Finally, the cliff. It represents the step into the unknown. There's that word again, the unknown. The cliff also represents the gateway to the sequences of the major arcana as represented here in the tableau of the tarot on the 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment. So he's basically going off the cliff, right? Off the cliff from his the cosmic void, right? Before becoming incarnated into this world and into the 7 stages, and which begins with bondage. So that is the Fool, and this is the Fool's journey into self-actualization as symbolized by these 7 columns or stages. So that's it for this episode. Tune in to the second episode where we will begin to explore the first stage of spiritual unfoldment called Bondage. I'm your host, Damien Sabuyan, and this is the Builders of the Light Web series on the way of the Cosmic Magician, navigating the 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment.